Right, welcome back to the Jack Ward Football Podcast. Today we are going to be breaking down the top 6 race in Sky Bet League 1. At the beginning of the week we touched on the top 2 race and the title race. It's now time we look at this ongoing battle between 4 clubs. You're probably thinking, which 4 clubs are in contention? Well, it's almost like I had this screen planned. This is the current League 1 table. You can see, I think, Wycombe are the final team in contention, and then of course we have Derby, Bolton, Peterborough and Barnsley are mathematically in the top 6. We don't have to worry about them. So it's just 4 clubs: Wycombe, Derby, Bolton and Peterborough United. In this video, it's the same as the last one, the same format. We look at the last 5 games and how they fared in those matches. We'll then look at each club's run into the season, try and predict those individual matches, giving us my final predicted top 6 standings. I'll be honest, if you watch the top 2 video, you'll know the prediction is where this type of video sort of falls off a little bit, but that's fine. Let's get into it, beginning with Wycombe Wanderers and their last 5 matches. So starting off with Wycombe, you can see their recent form on the screen right now. They are on 68 points in 8th position, and those last 5 games are pretty topsy-turvy. A draw at home to MK Dons, then a heavy defeat to Ipswich 4-0. A good win over Forest Green Rovers 2-0, and then once again they lose away from home to Morecambe, and then a good result against a informed Cambridge side 2-1 in their last match. The one word that comes to mind when looking at Wycombe and their last 5 games is inconsistent, and a word that you wouldn't normally put with Wycombe. Now, of course, there has been one significant change over the last season with Wycombe, and that is a managerial change. Gareth Ainsworth left the football club, around 2 months ago. Bloomfield has come through the door. I think he's had quite a difficult start. I'm not fully convinced on Bloomfield. They haven't looked the same type of side. Having said that, I've got the XGs next to these games here. I actually think the most Wycombe game is probably this Cambridge one, where they out XG Cambridge 2.39. They did concede quite a bit to 1.73. Other than the quite high conceded expected goals, that is quite a Wycombe type of performance, and one you would associate with the Gareth Ainsworth Wycombe of probably the last 10 years almost, but especially in League One in recent history, the last 3 or 4 years, where they have had really good ends to the season and gone on to get promoted and gone to playoff finals, etc. So I think I look at those last 5 games and it has stretched on a little bit longer than that. When Ainsworth left the club, they were in more contention than they are now. I think if you look at and you ask Wycombe fans, they probably would say at this point they'd be hoping to have more than 68 points because of the situation when Ainsworth left. But again, growing pains, big transitions. When managers leave, it's always a big issue, but when a manager leaves that's been there for 10 years, that's a whole different story. Look at their total XG4 in those last 5 games, 6.33, which isn't bad. We'll touch on others. That isn't actually the worst one, I don't think. Total XG against is 5.92, giving them a difference of plus 0.41. So the difference isn't massive. They are conceding quite a little bit, 0.95 away to MK Dons, but still conceding 2 goals. A heavy defeat to Ipswich, but only 1.79, suggesting that mistakes and a clinical Ipswich side was the problem in that one, but creating pretty much nothing. Very disappointing against the Tractor Boys. Then, decent over Forest Green, enough to win the game, you'd say. And then creating more than Morecambe, but then, not scoring, not taking those chances and not being clinical, which is what they have been over the last couple of years. So, yeah, you can see why they're not favourites to be in the top 2. And I've just put Wycombe in there because of only being 4 or 5. I think it's 4 points away from the top 6 in the playoff places right now in 8th position. It's been a difficult last 5 games and it has stretched on a little bit longer than that. But who knows? We'll come back to those last games and predict those in just a second. So next up, Derby County, just outside the playoff places right now on 72 points. You look at that recent form. Fairly inconsistent again, disappointing draws. That one against MK Dons at home is one you should be expecting more from, especially with an XG of 2.74. They were definitely on top, created the chances, and expected goals tells us that they should have definitely scored more than 1, and conceding only 0.3 but still drawing 1-1 suggests they should not have drawn that game. That had to be a win, and it wasn't. And when you look at where they are right now, just outside those places, Bolton have got a game in hand on Derby as well, which isn't nice and puts them on the back foot. They're the type of games where you look back and go, if only we'd beaten MK Dons, and that is the problem. I think that has been a little bit of an issue for Derby through the season, actually. Bristol Rovers, they got battered against Bristol Rovers, to be honest with you. 2.26 to 0.95. You'd say quite lucky to get a draw in that one. And then a good result against Exeter, 0.68 to 1.25. You'd say deserved the win. I think it was quite a, again, it wasn't a battering. It wasn't a they didn't destroy Exeter. I think Exeter did have moments. It was quite an end-to-end game. But when Derby did come forward, they created better chances from them. It was a game with even moments, with Exeter and Derby both doing things in the final third and both having momentum. But when you look at what came from those big moments, Derby were creating better chances, hence the higher XG. And then you look at Ipswich, the furthest from the last five, losing that one 2-0, 0.52, created nothing. I know this was sort of in the peak of Ipswich's fantastic winning run, and we know that they've gone on to do pretty well after that as well, but not creating anything really at home and conceding that much and just being beaten so comfortably was a massive issue. Look, it highlights Derby maybe not being to the level that they should be and having an off day for sure, as well as highlighting that Ipswich are a fantastic side that can beat anybody, home or away. That was shown massively in that game. And then when looking at Derby's total XG4 in those last 5 games, 7.45, total XG against the 5.25, giving them a difference of 2.2. So it's not bad. It isn't bad at all. It's better than Wycombe's for context. But I look at some of those results, and that one actually, weirdly, against MK Don stands out. They should have won that game, and just like that, you're looking at 3 wins from 5, and that's a much better position to be in, especially when you look at sides like Bolton in front of them with a game in hand and a points cushion. Not a massive one, but fine margins and small margins will play a huge part. It's very, very tight running, and again, getting outplayed at home against Ipswich isn't ideal, but says I think more about Ipswich than it does against Derby. So next up, Bolton Wanderers. They're on 72 points in those playoff places as of recording. Straight away, what am I thinking? Maybe too many draws, but looking deeper into those draws are important. I think the first one against Sheffield Wednesday away from home isn't a bad point. Did they create a whole lot? No, not really. Did they concede a lot? No, not really. 0.97, yeah, they conceded more than they created themselves, but at the same time, it's Sheffield Wednesday. At that point, Wednesday were sort of just coming out of their amazing unbeaten run. Of course, they were still unbeaten, but after that, I think it's iffy and wobbly from a Wednesday perspective. So to get a point at Hillsborough at that point is a fantastic place to be. And yeah, they didn't create a whole lot, but you look at the context of the game, look at season state, it's a smash and grab, but not really. I think they pretty deserve to get something from it when you look at how defensively good they were. Exeter nil, Bolton 1.04 to 0.86. Again, not really creating too much. There's a bit of a pattern there, 0.86, but scoring 1 goal, defensively being good, but conceding quite a little bit of expected goal, which could be a bit of a problem for Ian Everett's side, but nevertheless winning the game, and at that point in the season, that's what matters. You then look at their next one, which was a really disappointing draw. I said straight away about looking at draws in a deeper way. Wednesday, maybe a slight anomaly, but Cambridge at home, you've got to be winning that game for me, especially when you've got 1.06 to 0.67 expected goals. You've got to create more than that. I think they definitely took their foot off the gas, allowed Cambridge into the game, didn't go on and try and get that second goal, or did, but failed to do it. Looking at the XG, didn't look like they were going for it, and definitely looking to double their lead at that point, because they were 1-0 up going into the final moments of the game. When you do just concede pressure, and again, you look at Oxford, got battered, 1.88 to only 0.44. Of course, took their chance, they won the game, but you can't concede pressure, you can't concede opportunity, because some side who do have a striker, unlike Oxford, will punish you. Burton did that, conceding 1.82. Yes, they created more, but again, conceding and only scoring 1 goal, you're going to find yourself in a position where you're not winning games of football. I think maybe when you look at those draws, they should have been better at just going and winning a game. When you have that quality, you can go and do that. I don't know why. It's a strange tactic. Maybe a little bit less in the Burton game, but I saw it with my own eyes against Oxford. They could have scored another goal because they just let us come at us, and maybe that was because they were trying to save energy and they knew that we weren't going to score because we didn't have a striker, perhaps. But other sides are going to cause problems, and Cambridge and Burton, either side of that game, were examples of that. Total XG 4 of 5.28, XG against was 6.29, so you can see actually leaving them with a minus difference for expected goals in those last 5 games of 1.01. Not great. Yes, their form is probably the best out of the two we've looked at going into this one, just with those draws, but so they're staying unbeaten, but they could be doing more. Only scoring an average of 1 goal in all of those games. In fact, exactly 1 goal in all of those matches. Yes, it's not bad, but for Bolton and the players they've got there, it could be better. And I think they've got to be improving in certain areas, for me anyway. Right then, let's move on to Peterborough United, currently on 73 points in 5th position. Last 5 matches, all over the shop a little bit when you look at the form. A 0-0 draw against Oxford, 0.42 to 0.14, didn't create or concede too much. Shrewsbury 0, Peterborough 3, 0.22 to 2.58, a really good performance, definitely front-footed, looking to win the game comfortably and convincingly, and they did. Shrewsbury didn't create anything of 0.22, reflecting that and illustrating that pretty clearly, and they made the most of being very, very good, showing that the best form of defence is attack, not really allowing Shrewsbury into the game and going at them full throttle and winning the game 3-0. Fantastic stuff. I don't know why that's in yellow. That should be green. That's a big mistake, and I do apologise for that, because that is making maybe the look of it slightly different. That does look a little bit better, doesn't it? Imagine what a green can do. Peterborough 3, Exeter 1, 1.54 to 0.63. So again, win the game, and you say expected goal suggests that they did well and took the chances when it came. And then Cambridge 2-0 defeats, a Derby Day defeat for Peterborough. Not nice. 1.08 to 0.90. You'd say actually got beaten fairly comfortably in that one. Cambridge deserved to win, and they did win. And then finally, a away result to Accrington, 2-1, 1.23 to 1.39. Actually quite a close match, but Peterborough taking the all-important chances and winning it by just a single goal. 3 wins from 5 is never a bad record. Maybe losing to Cambridge was a frustrating one. I'd be slightly more concerned if that was the last game, the defeat to Cambridge, because then you look at that from a psychological perspective and you go, how are they going to fare? Is that sort of going to derail their season? Answer, no, not really, because you then go to Accrington after that Cambridge game and win it. So you'd actually say that it wouldn't derail their season, and they put that past them straight away, which at this point in the season is exactly what you've got to do. Total XG 4 in the last 5, 6.83. Total XG against 3.30, giving them a difference of plus 3.53. So we've looked at these teams' last 5 games. It's now time we look at these clubs' remaining fixtures of the season and try, and I emphasise the word try, to predict them. We begin with Wycombe, who are on 68 points. Their remaining games of the season are a home game against Lincoln City. I've got them to draw that one. I think Lincoln, away from home, they've got some really good results across the campaign. Derby, they beat Plymouth at Home Park, so they could cause Wycombe problems at Lincoln. I've gone with a draw in that one. I've got them to beat Cheltenham at home and then draw to Pompey on the final day at Fratton Park, giving them 5 points. That's 5 points. In the last one, if you watched it, you'll know counting up these points was a bit of a struggle. That's 5 points. 3, 4, 5. Let's move on to Derby, who are on 72 points. Their remaining games are a home one to Bolton Albion, then a home game to Pompey, and then an away fixture to Sheffield Wednesday. Not very nice games there. Burton, I think they are going to win, but even saying that, Burton have got some good results against some top sides in recent weeks. So they're not going to be easy, but I think Derby will see through that. They've got to, especially when you look at these next 2 ones. Pompey at home, I think they're going to draw that one. I think they are going to draw it. It wouldn't surprise me if Derby do win it, because I think Portsmouth in recent weeks have been pretty rubbish. They've drawn quite a few games and haven't looked very good, and certainly not as good as they were when John Massinio first took over, or when Danny Cowley was there right at the start of the season. They're sort of falling back into this sort of difficult, frustrating spell that we saw at the middle of the season. So I've gone with a draw. Maybe that's because Pompey maybe will step up in this big game and have had quite a few draws in the last couple of weeks. But if I'm going to change it last minute, I might go with a win, but I'm going to stick to my guns and say a draw. And then I see them losing against Sheffield Wednesday on the final day, giving them 4 points. That does feel harsh, actually. I did this last night. Maybe they get a draw against Wednesday, or maybe they win against Pompey, but I'm going to stick to this. Yeah, I'm going to stick to it. 4 points I'm going to go with. So up next, Bolton Wanderers on 72 points. They have a game in hand on the other 3 clubs we've mentioned in the episode today. Those last 4 matches look like this. Shrewsbury at home, Accrington at home, Fleetwood at home, and Bristol Rovers away on the final game of the season. 3 home games from 4, I think, is a really nice place to be. You always think home advantage does play a big part, and statistically that has shown this season it does. So they'll be very, very happy with that. I think their running is quite kind, not nice, because no games in League One are nice, as the cliche and the truth does state. But I think when you look at other games, you look at Derby, for example, with Pompey and Wednesday, you compare it to Bolton's, they're in a much better position when you look at the difficulty of the fixture. I think they're going to beat Shrewsbury, beat Accrington, only draw to Fleetwood because of Fleetwood's very, very good away record, and then Bristol Rovers against Bolton. I think final day, they might seize up a little bit, and Bristol Rovers make it a little bit nervy for everybody, but draw, but leaving them with 8 total points from those remaining 4 games. I think they're going to be okay, Bolton. So finally, we have Peterborough, who are on 73 points at the moment and have 3 games remaining. A home match against Ipswich, a home game against Bristol Rovers, and an away fixture against Barnsley. I've got them to lose to Ipswich, beat Bristol Rovers at home, and then draw to Barnsley on the final game of the season, giving them a total of 4 points. So the moment of truth then, what are my final predicted standings when taking into consideration the games that I've just predicted there? In 8th position, I've got Wycombe Wanderers on 73 points. In 7th, I've got Derby County on 76 points. Then in 6th, I've got Peterborough on 77 points. And then finally, in 5th, in that top 6, I've got Bolton Wanderers on 80 points. That is what my predictions are saying. But like I said, you look at my top 6 ones, they can go wrong as early as tomorrow. I'm recording this on Friday. It should be out Friday. There's a full game week and a full programme tomorrow. And by 5 o'clock tomorrow, this will be a pretty, hopefully not a relevant video, but one we can all look back on and go, he got that wrong once again. That is a very high possibility. In the comment section down below, of course, as always, interact is what makes this podcast what it is. Let me know what you're thinking. Are you agreeing? Are you disagreeing? I've got some bold calls in there. Have I been too harsh on Derby? Potentially, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't been fully convinced by them, especially in the last 5 matches and maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe picking up form at this point in the season is exactly what they're going to do, and would be massive if they are going to finish in those playoff places come the end of the season. But until next time, please do leave a like and subscribe on the road to 5,000 subscribers come the end of the season. We're so close, and just saying that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for the recent support. I've been Jack. This has been the Jack Ward Football Podcast, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.